So what do I need to do to awaken?
It is a very tough question to answer in a general way, because spiritual practices can be very individual, as we all know. Some practices work well with some people, but for some reasons, the same practices don't do much to some others, regardless of how long they have practiced or what stages they are on their journey. As a result, we all have to go through trying out some or many different types of practices to get to know what works for us. I know some people are lucky enough to find the one that works for them straight away, and they didn't have to go through trial and error much on their path. But I don't think that's that common. The good news is that even if you feel you might have wasted so much time and money on some useless practices or teachings, the truth is that nothing's wasted and everything contributes to your growth. Getting to know what doesn't work for you is also one part of the learning process. From one of my spiritual readings in the past, I remember one guru mentioning that you can get awakening in 6 years of starting to devote to practicing for awakening if you do well. That can be a quite controversial comment because we don't see many people gaining awakening, even though they have been on their spiritual path diligently a lot longer than 6 years. There are some complicated factors involved when we talk about length of time and awakening. But the comment still has an important implication of that you achieve awakening a lot quicker if you do well. Which means if you've been devoting yourself on the path of awakening, but if you don't feel you are going anywhere much, you need to review your practices. This doesn't necessarily mean that you need to abandon the teaching that you've been practicing and find a better teaching. It more means that you need to review what and how you have been doing. Also, in many cases, people think their goal is awakening, but the true desire is something else. As a result, they focus on the practices that work for that something else rather than awakening. In a normal way of thinking, we think we know about ourselves well. But quite often, we don't, unfortunately. Knowing yourself, including your true desires, is very important on your spiritual path to obtain exactly what you want in order to get the tailored outcomes in the end. Another common mistake could be that you might have wrong concepts and beliefs on awakening, and you're diligently practicing for it based on your imagination of what awakening might be or should be. Now, I cannot say you should do this or that to awaken because different things work for different individuals. But I can talk about a few things that can be stubborn obstacles for awakening on your path, which could hold you back from going forward for a long time, sometimes until the end of your life. You can try to be mindful to avoid these obstacles as one of the practices you do for awakening. Okay, here are some don't do's for awakening. First, if possible, do not hold any beliefs or concepts regarding awakening or enlightenment. Second, don't get too attached to one theme that you think is most important to practice for awakening or enlightenment. Third, don't get caught up with certain mind states or supernatural experiences during your journey. Fourth, don't deceive yourself on your path. Let me explain a bit about these points. The first, don't hold beliefs or concepts on awakening or enlightenment. This is probably the one most important point on your path. Don't even try to imagine it because it doesn't help your path. Rather, it will become your biggest hindrance for gaining awakening or enlightenment. Is it possible to keep yourself neutral with all that information outside? Yes. It is not easy, but at least you can try to be mindful about it. Second, don't get carried away with one theme for practicing. I've seen people overly get attached to one theme, like love or compassion, which are probably most common ones too. It doesn't matter if you get hooked with positive themes or negative themes as important practice to apply in everyday life for your spiritual growth. When you think some things are good, you need bad things to compare to make sure those good things in your thought are actually good, which creates duality. The balanced way of seeing, without too much judgment, helps deconstructing your solidly built concepts and beliefs in our mind. Third, I've also seen almost everyone on the path get caught up with certain mind states and spend so much time to either achieve it, again, or keep it. Some people might get a sense of achieving when they get into certain mind states. However, quite often, it's just byproducts on the way. Notice it, but don't spend too much time and efforts to achieve it again. Those states of mind will come and go. Basically, don't get attached to anything that you come across on the way on your path. Lastly, don't deceive yourself. I do see that we all deceive ourselves to some extent. We frequently justify ourselves to feel right or good. But honesty is one very important practice for awakening. Observe yourself with brutal honesty every single moment if possible. Okay, now let's talk about do's. First, know exactly what you want on your path. Second, deconstruct your beliefs and concepts on anything and everything. Third, be curious and question until you get answers. Fourth, be very desperate to have awakening. Fifth, be humble. The first one, know what you truly want, is the one I mention a lot. You've got to want awakening or enlightenment if you want to get it. If you want peaceful mind, that can be a byproduct on the way of awakening. But there are many efficient practices out there for achieving peaceful mind. Second, deconstructing your beliefs and concepts are one of the very essential practices for awakening. Your beliefs and concepts will always hold you back from learning on a fast pace. Can we hold beliefs and concepts but still somehow gain awakening? I think that would be very unlikely. Observe and analyze your thoughts and behaviors to deconstruct your belief system whenever possible. At the end of the day, the path of awakening is not making a fool by putting more things in us. It is a path of emptying it out, which is a lot more difficult than making a fool. Third, be curious and question. You have to be a scholar, researcher, seeker, and analyst for your path. Some people say that intelligence is a hindrance for spiritual development. I would say intelligence is one of the very important tools for awakening. Using it well in an appropriate way can help sharpen your mind and focus on the right things for your spiritual development. Fourth, be very desperate. Sometimes I measure how close a person might be to awaken by seeing their desperation. Some people don't see any other reason to continue their life but to awaken. Those people will try maximum to get awakening. They will endure any kind of hardship on the way. They won't give it up or let go until they get awakening. They know it's time. They have to awaken. The more desperate you are, the more you will devote yourself for awakening. Thus, the better chance to awaken. Lastly, please stay humble all the time. Watch out how your egoic mind might try to use your spiritual knowledge and experiences to feel better and superior to others. This kind of egoic mind can become a subtle but very stubborn obstacle that holds you back from going forward for awakening. Please keep the attitude of, I know nothing until I get awakening. Okay, these are quick points that I can come up with which could help your way to awaken. I'm sure you've heard of all these many times on your path, if you've been on the path for awakening for a while. However, when we are on the path for a long time, we tend to ignore or forget the importance of these because we keep looking for magical teachings that might just take us to awakening. There might be some lucky people who found the magic, but I know nothing like that myself. As long as I know, diligent practicing of these essential points can help you awaken, along with your own choice of any other practices for awakening.